Set your project directory, click on the Project Directory button, go to a folder inside the Minitoots2 folder called Weightshifting. Click OK. Go to File, we'll load from the Objects folder cylinder.obj. Let's set the draw mode of the cylinder to facet and edges. Let's go to a left view. Continue with our little mini setup here. While the cylinder is highlighted in Setup, go to the Effects tab and highlight Bone Deform. Add that to the cylinder. Just move the bone deform up to the top, use the plus key to add 2 bones to the scene. Go back into Animate. The idea behind weight shifting is to alter the weighting information of each vertice through the modeler. Right now, if we bend this up, the bones have attached themselves automatically, and between where the bones cross, the weights have averaged themselves out. What we're going to do is we're going to do a kind of weight mapping effect inside the modeler and use Morph Blender to transfer those weights to our original model. To better illustrate this, let's go into the modeler. I have my modeler open, Wings 3D. This is our cylinder. I'm going to highlight the cylinder, right click and duplicate it. I'm going to hide our original. We're going to rename our duplicate cylinder_weight. In setup mode, every control point position is assigned a weight based on a distance from the bone. If we grab some of these weights and we move them, their distance from the bone changes, and that changes how they're deformed in the scene by the bones. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play around with some of the values here. I'm going to shift all these values up. So that these weights have less influence than these weights when they're moving around. With this new model, let's go to File. We're going to export selected as an OBJ. We're going to call it cylinder_weights. Let's go inside Messiah Studio. Go to File, we'll highlight our cylinder model and we'll replace it with cylinderweights.obj. Let's click into Setup and back into Animate to retain that new information. You can see now that the weights have changed a little bit. See, more weight has been assigned to the outlying geometry than was before. So how do we get this back to our original model? Well, like I said, we're going to add a Morph Blender effect. Let's go to File. We're going to load our old cylinder again. This is our original model. Zip into Setup again and go down to Morph Blender. While our cylinder weights model is selected, we'll add the Morph Blender effect to that. And it automatically pops you into the Cluster Create tab. We will highlight cylinder as the object and we'll convert that to a cluster. See, it disappears. We'll create a new slider and we're going to tie that value to cylinder. We'll just right click and hide all the other values. The default value will be set to 1 in case we reset our keyframes. And switch back into Animate. Let's move the slider to 1. You see, nothing happens. That's because our bone deform needs to use predeformed points. Now when we do that, it pops to its original position. But we are inheriting the weight values from our morphed model. This is a great way to mess around with any of the values inside Modeler. To further illustrate my point, let's zip back into Wings 3D. We'll select a bunch of control points and we'll deform them with a crumple along their normals. Let's see, let's deform them more with a crumple random. Now this is a very extreme case here. Every control point is outside of its normal range, which means it'll be getting a different value from all of the bones. Let's highlight the whole model, export selected as an OBJ, and just save over our cylinder weights object. In Messiah Studio or Animate, let's go to File, highlight your cylinder weights object. Let's replace that with our new cylinder weights object. Click into Setup to make sure that we have it. Go back into Animate. you can see what the weights are doing. As we rotate, some of these weights which have crossed over from our randomize are actually absorbing the weight value from the second bone. Let's go to File. I'm going to save this scene as Weightshift1.fxs.